Did your grandma ever make a meal so cozy it felt like a warm hug on a snow day? Today, we're taking a delicious stroll down memory lane to uncover the classic winter comfort foods that baby boomers grew up loving, and, trust me, there's enough nostalgia here to heat your kitchen and your heart. These aren't just meals, they're snapshots of a simpler time when the kitchen was the warmest place in the house, and every dish told a story. Let's dive in, starting where every good winter day begins: breakfast. Breakfast, the cozy start to the day. First, there's oatmeal, the quintessential breakfast for cold mornings. This wasn't the kind that came in microwavable packets, flavors like cinnamon roll. This was slow-cooked, hearty, and satisfying, stirred on the stovetop until it reached just the right consistency. Grandma always knew the magic ratio of water to oat, and she added just a pinch of salt to make it perfect. The toppings were simple but memorable: brown sugar, raisins, a swirl of cream, or even a pat of butter. For some families, cream of wheat or maltomeal filled the same comforting role. It was smoother than oatmeal, but just as warm and inviting, a blank canvas for sweet toppings like cinnamon sugar or honey, eggs, bacon, and homemade toast. Then there were the days of classic eggs and bacon. The eggs might be scrambled, fried, or even poached if someone had the patience. Bacon was thick, crispy, and fried in a cast iron skillet, leaving behind grease that was often used for cooking the eggs. And toast wasn't just an afterthought. It was made with thick slices of homemade bread. A spread of apple butter, strawberry jam, or a smear of peanut butter made it extra special. Pancakes and waffles, the weekend treat. Weekend mornings were reserved for the kings of breakfast: pancakes and waffles. Pancakes were made from scratch, poured onto a sizzling griddle, and flipped with precision. If your mom or grandma really wanted to spoil you, she'd toss in blueberries or chocolate chips. Waffles, meanwhile, had those perfect little pockets for holding syrup, butter, or maybe even a dusting of powdered sugar. Breakfast casseroles. In some households, breakfast casseroles were a big hit. Layers of eggs, cheese, sausage, and bread baked into a savory dish that could feed the whole family. It was practical, filling, and oh so comforting, especially when served alongside a mug of hot coffee or cocoa. By the time breakfast was over, you were ready to tackle the snowy day ahead, whether that meant bundling up for a morning of sledding or curling up by the fire with a book. Lunch, a warm midday break. Tomato soup and grilled cheese. For lunch, nothing beats the classic pairing of tomato soup and grilled cheese. The soup came straight from a Campbell's can, and the grilled cheese was made with butter-slathered white bread and a slice of American cheese, grilled to golden perfection. If you were really lucky, your mom might cut the sandwich into triangles because, as every baby boomer knows, food tastes better in triangles. Chicken noodle soup. Another lunch staple was chicken noodle soup. Whether it was homemade or straight from a can, it had a magical way of making you feel warm and cared for. The noodles were soft, the broth was savory, and the chicken pieces were like little treasures floating in the bowl. Sloppy Joes. Then there were Sloppy Joes, the messy, finger-licking sandwich that everyone loved. Ground beef cooked in a tangy tomato-based sauce, piled high on a soft bunnet, was the kind of lunch that required a stack of napkins, but was totally worth it. Hot dogs and baked beans. For a hearty lunch, hot dogs and baked beans were a popular combo. The hot dogs might be boiled or fried, served on a bun or just on a plate, while the baked beans were slow-cooked with molasses or brown sugar, creating a sweet and savory side that warmed you right up. Macaroni and cheese. And let's not forget mac and cheese: creamy, cheesy, and made with love. Some families made it from scratch, baking it in the oven until the top was golden and crispy. Others went for the stovetop version, with that neon orange cheese powder that somehow tasted amazing. Dinner, the main event. Dinner was where baby boomer winter comfort foods truly stole the show. After a long day of school, work, or playing in the snow, gathering around the dinner table felt like a ceremony of warmth, comfort, and togetherness. Here are a few more hearty and soul-warming dinners that defined the era. Meatloaf with mashed potatoes and gravy. Let's start with the undeniable classic, meatloaf. Ground beef mixed with breadcrumbs, onions, and eggs, shaped into a loaf and topped with a sweet and tangy ketchup glaze. The real magic happened when it was sliced thick and paired with mashed potatoes, made fluffy with milk and butter, and drowned in savory brown gravy. The potatoes were often whipped so smooth they could have been used as insulation. On a cold winter night, meatloaf wasn't just dinner, it was an event. Pot roast with root vegetables. Next up, the winter MVP. Pot roast. This wasn't a quick meal, it was an all-day affair. The roast simmered in the oven or a slow cooker for hours, surrounded by potatoes, carrots, onions, and sometimes parsnips. The broth transformed into a rich, savory gravy that soaked into everything on the plate. The meat was so tender, it practically fell apart at the touch of a fork. Pot roast was more than food. It was an edible after a day of battling icy winds and snowdrifts. Chicken and dumplings. On especially chilly nights, chicken and dumplings brought comfort to the table. A hearty stew of shredded chicken, carrots, celery, onions formed the base. The dumplings' fluffy clouds of dough floated on top, soaking up the flavorful broth while staying pillowy, soft. Every bite felt like someone wrapped you in a quilt and handed you a cup of tea. Shepherd's pie. For those seeking a one-dish wonder, shepherd's pie was a go-to. Layers of ground beef cooked with onions, peas, and carrots were topped with creamy mashed potatoes and baked until golden. Some families added cheese to the top for an extra layer of indulgence. Shepherd's pie was hearty enough to keep you full through a snowstorm and comforting enough to make you forget the ice piling up outside. Beef stroganoff, rich, creamy, and served over buttery egg noodles. Beef stroganoff was the kind of meal that felt fancy, but was deceptively simple to make. Thin slices of beef were cooked in a sauce made from sour cream, mushrooms, and onions, creating a dish that was equal parts cozy and elegant. For many families, this was a Sunday dinner favorite, served with a side of green beans or a salad to balance out all that creaminess. Ham and scalloped potatoes. When there was leftover holiday ham, it found new life in dishes like ham and scalloped potatoes. The ham was baked with a sweet glaze, usually brown sugar, mustard, and pineapple and served alongside scalloped potatoes. These weren't your average spuds. Thinly sliced potatoes were layered with cream, cheese, and seasonings, then baked until bubbling and golden. The combination of salty ham and creamy potatoes was nothing short of magical. Chili with cornbread. For a bit of spice on a cold night, chili was a winter favorite. Whether it was made with ground beef, beans, and tomatoes or cooked Texas style with no beans at all, chili was a stick-to-your-ribs kind of meal. Cornbread, baked fresh in a cast iron skillet, was the perfect partner. Slathered with butter and served warm, it was used to scoop up every last bite of the chili. Cabbage rolls. Cabbage rolls brought a bit of old-world flavor to many baby boomer dinner tables. These were made by stuffing cabbage leaves with a mixture of ground beef, rice, and seasonings, then baking them in a tomato-based sauce. The result, a dish that was hearty, tangy, and packed with flavor. Cabbage rolls were often served with crust bread to soak up the sauce. Turkey tetrazzini. This was the ultimate way to use up leftover turkey. Turkey tetrazzini combined shredded turkey, spaghetti, mushrooms, and a creamy sauce, all baked together until bubbly. Topped with breadcrumbs or shredded cheese, it was a casserole that felt like a warm blanket in food form. Goulash. For families looking for something quick, affordable, and filling, goulash was the answer. This Americanized version of the Hungarian classic combined ground beef, macaroni, tomatoes, and a blend of spices to create a one-pot wonder. Some added cheese on top for extra comfort. It was easy to make, stretched to feed a crowd, always left you satisfied. Pork chops with apples and onions. Pork chops were a popular winter dinner, especially when paired with apples and onions. The pork chops were pan-fried or baked, then topped with a mixture of caramelized onions and apples. The sweetness of the apples balanced the savory chops perfectly, making it a dish that felt both rustic and refined. Turkey pot pie. Pot pie was the ultimate comfort food for many families. Turkey, carrots, peas, and a creamy sauce were baked inside a flaky pie crust. Each bite was a perfect combination of tender meat, flavorful vegetables, and buttery crust. On a cold winter night, turkey pot pie was like edible central heating. Dessert, the sweet finale. Dinner wasn't complete without dessert. Bread pudding, warm and spiced with cinnamon, was a favorite. Pies like apple, pecan, sweet potato were often baked on the weekends and enjoyed throughout the week. And for a quick treat, there were always cookies. Whether they were classic chocolate chip or sugar cookies decorated with leftover holiday sprinkles. Winter meals weren't just about food, they were about family, tradition, and the simple joy of being together. These classic dishes are more than recipes. They're a glimpse into the past, a reminder of a time when life was slower, cozier, and maybe just a little bit sweeter. As always, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this stroll down memory lane, let me know your favorite winter comfort food in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more foodie nostalgia. See you on the next one.